let's see if I can show you this massive stack of books that I read in January. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I can't believe I read, 22 books in January. That is unheard of. I mean, granted, a lot of them are manga and graphic novels, so I can't really say that I read a whole lot of books, but let's just get into my wrap up because I'm so excited to tell you all about these books. But before I get into them, please make sure that you like this video, make sure that you subscribe, and always check my description box down below for links to my Goodreads, Instagram, Pango Books account, Patreon, all of the fun stuff down there. Now, let's get into all the books that I read in January. So in no particular order, I'm just going to go through all my graphic novels and manga because that is what I read at first at the beginning of the year. So I read Saga Volume 2 by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples. Now, this is a continuation of a series that I am currently already reading, and it is a sci-fi, fantasy, paranormal, romance, like all of those genres, because you are following basically a husband and wife who basically are like a Romeo and Juliet type of retelling. One comes from a warring moon, one comes from the planet. They are not supposed to be together, but they are. They are in love. They have a baby, and we are being told about their lives and what all is going on around them from their child's point of view in somewhat so many years in the future. So we are just following them. It's gruesome. It's good. I love it. It is spicy, but it has a lot of like alien stuff in there. So if you're not into that, you probably wouldn't like this, but I am eating this series up, and I can't wait to get to book 3. I really like the fact that whenever we're going through and we are seeing moments in their lives or the friends' lives or, whoever, you get this little side thing where she writes in like her thoughts, like, or so they thought, or this is when they fell in love or something, like from the child looking back on their life. So it's actually pretty neat. I really like it because there are a lot of politics in this world and a lot of different things going on, a lot of moving parts, and I'm really enjoying that. I'm enjoying the aspect of getting to know this entire universe. So I strongly suggest this if you guys want to pick up a great graphic novel that is sci-fi, kind of like a little bit of a romance in there, and has some spicy scenes in it. The next one that I have is Punderworld, and this one is by Linda Sejic, and this is volume 1. This was published in 2021, I think. No volume 2 yet, not even any talks of volume 2. I want to know where volume 2 is because I need to know more about this story and this world. We are following Hades and Persephone. It is their love story. It has some comical moments in it. It has all of the Greek gods and some of the myth and lore that you are used to knowing, but it just puts it in a great, wholesome type of book. I absolutely love it. I love how Hades isn't necessarily like this ruthless killer. He is just a wholesome sweetheart, a cinnamon roll, and he's just so in love with Persephone. I absolutely love this. I mean, the graphics were great. The story was so amazing. It had me immersed. I really want volume 2. So if you do like Greek mythology and a Hades and Persephone retelling, I highly suggest picking up Punderworld, but please be warned that there is no volume 2. So if you love it, you might be waiting a while. The next one is a manga that I read, and it is called Dick Fight Island by Raven Ike. I don't even have words for this manga. It is wild. It's an experience. It is about these different lands, parts of the world that are ruled by different clans, I guess. And every, 4 years, 5 years, they all meet on this island. They pick a champion from their clan and tribe, and basically they fight. I can't tell you much more about it because I do not want to ruin your experience if you want to dive into this. However, please know that this is very graphic and very like sexual. So please know going in that this is not going to be like a fun, lighthearted manga. It is going to give you a lot of graphic detail. And don't say that I didn't warn you. The next manga that I'm going to talk about it as a series because I did read volumes 1, 2, and 3 in here, but that is My Happy Marriage, and it's by Akumi Agitagi, I think is how you say it. Anyway, I ended up reading volumes 1, 2, and 3 because that's what I had owned at the time. I am in love with this series. I immediately ordered book 4, volume 4 in this. However, I noticed whenever I went to go order it, there's only 4 volumes in the manga style, but there are like 6 volumes in the light novel format. So I don't know why that is, but I really like the manga format. I'm going to try the light novel, see how different it is. This is a Netflix series, so if you don't want to read the manga, but you want to know what the story is about, you can watch it on Netflix. They do currently have season 1 on there. I have not watched it yet. I don't know how far into the story they get with season 1, because I don't really feel like you can make a whole season out of volume 1. Unless you're adding in things that aren't necessarily in the mangas. So I don't know how it's going to go. I need to watch it just to see like how far in it goes. But if you don't know what this is about our female main character. I am not going to try to pronounce these Japanese names, but you are following our female main character, and she is coming from a family that is prestige, kind of like nobility, if you want to say. And basically she is in an arranged marriage to our male main character, who is like a general. He's like a duke, pretty high in society. And every time the women go to live with him, they only last like 4 days. He never wants to pursue marrying them. So he is portrayed as this ruthless person. He's cruel. And so she is in an arranged marriage with him. So she goes. She was treated like the evil stepdaughter the whole time that she was in her family home. And her dad did nothing to help better her situation. He just let it continue, the abuse and the brutality that she had suffered. So whenever she goes to live with him before they are officially engaged, she tries to act like the best servant. She wants to please him because she knows that whenever he kicks her out in 4 days, she has nowhere to go. She can't go back to her home or anything. And the story goes from there. This is such a great romance. It is wholesome, not spicy at all. There is no spice in here, but I love it. I love the romance. I love her character, I love his character, I love their dynamic together, and I love what they go through and how they open up to each other. So I cannot wait to finish the series. So I do highly suggest, if you like romance and you want a good heartfelt romance and you want to try manga out, I highly suggest My Happy Marriage. It is wholesome, it's easy to follow, and I think that it would be a great addition to anyone's romance reading experience. Now, granted, I don't know how the light novels go, but the light novels are kind of like the American version, so they're just like a typical book. So if you don't want to try out actual manga with all of the graphics and reading it back to front, right to left kind of thing, try out the light novel. I'm sure it's just as great. I haven't read it yet, but I am going to be giving the light novels a try. So I absolutely love this series. I'm so happy that I finally picked it up, and I cannot wait to continue on, and I cannot wait to watch the Netflix series either. And the next manga that I got is a newer manga that I got towards the end of the year because I was looking for some more manga that I could dabble in and see kind of what my genres were. And I found this one and it sounded kind of similar to another manga series that I'm currently reading. So I gave it a try and I absolutely love it. And it is called We Can't Do Just Plain Love, and it's by Mafuyu Fukita. I don't know how to pronounce these names, you guys. That's why I'm not even going to try to pronounce the characters' names either. But basically, you are following our female main character. Both of them work together, okay? But it's about fetishes. Like, she has a smell fetish, I guess. Like, the way that a guy smells kind of just gets her going, I guess. And he is not able to talk to women because every time he talks to any woman, he basically gets aroused and he can't talk. And so they decide to help each other out. She gets kind of her smell fetish out of the way. He gets to, kind of release himself and learn how to be around women. And it's kind of about their love story. Granted, I've only read volume 1, so I don't know how much further in I gotta go before the characters are actually in love and want to be together. But I love it. I've already ordered volume 2. I think volume 3 will be coming out later this year, and I already have it pre-ordered. So I can't wait to continue this one. It is extra spicy, so I do say caution whenever you go to read the manga because there are very graphic scenes. So make sure that you're aware of that before you pick it up, but it is by far one of the best manga that I've read. The next manga that I have was kind of a letdown, and that is A Galaxy Next Door by Guido Amagakuri. I'm butchering this. I wanted to love this because the sound of the story, like the premise of it, sounded so fun. Basically, you're following our male main character who ends up having to raise his niece and his nephew because something had happened to their parents. So he's living in this house, raising his niece and nephew, and this girl moves in next door. Somehow, I can't even remember how they meet, but basically, she's not from this world or this planet, and she has kind of like a stinger, I guess, and it stings him accidentally. And so basically, she's like, we're engaged. We're going to get married because if anybody other than my husband, touches my stinger, they, could die, or I don't know. So now he's like found himself engaged to this lady that he knows nothing about and clearly is not even from this world. And I think that the story would set with people that really love sci-fi. I'm not a huge sci-fi fan. So if you do like sci-fi, I think you would like this. It was kind of a heartwarming story. I don't know. I just couldn't get into it, so I will be unhauling this, so it may be on my Pango Books account later on this month. If you end up wanting to purchase it, you can go over there. My link's always in the description. But, I'm glad that I tried it out. And then again, I'm going to talk about this series, but it's the next manga that I had read in January, and it's a continuation. I had already read volume 1, but that is volume 2 and 3 of Game Between the Suits. Oh my goodness. I am so happy I'm continuing on with this. It is so, so, so good. I love it. Basically, you are following our female main character. She is a workaholic. She doesn't do dating. All she does is work. And she ends up like doing the occasional hookup, right? But nothing's ever pleasurable. She'll answer her phone in the middle of it, all of this stuff. So basically, this guy comes to work at her firm and she has to kind of like teach him, kind of the job and what is expected and everything. He ends up telling her, let's just play a little bit of a game. Let's, have some release with each other. If one of us falls in love with someone else, then the game is over. And so the game is not to fall in love. And you're following them and what they're going through and their escapades that they get up to and how they keep it hidden at work. You can tell that this is definitely going to be a romance. I have already ordered the 4th volume. I think there's only 5 or 6 volumes out currently. So I'm almost fully caught up with it. I can't wait to continue because this is extra spicy again. It is so good. Very graphic. Scenes just out there for you if you want to read that and look at that. But it is so good. It really is. I'm really loving the story and the characters and the dynamic and the way that everything is being set up. The next one, I thought that I wasn't going to continue on because I thought that our main characters were like 10, 11, and 12. And I was like, I can't read this. But come to find out, they grow up. Like, I think the next volume, they end up being like 19, 20 years old. So we're safe there. But that is called My Gently Raised Beast. And this is by Early Flower, adapted by Tiva, art by Yes. You know what, I'm not even going to say that name. This story is really, really good. I love the way that it started out and has set up everything because basically our girl is a long lost princess. Her mother had raised her away from the royal family and kind of just as a normal child. Her mother ended up dying. She ended up being found by her father, so she's moved into the castle. And he has a daughter and a son that live there, so her half-siblings, and they're just awful to her, just straight awful. And she finds this cat and ends up befriending this cat, but come to find out this cat isn't an ordinary cat. This cat is like a panther type shapeshifter. Anyway, he ends up turning into this guy. If you can see that. Basically, he's kind of like a protector to her. And it's kind of like their friendship starting out. But you can tell in the later volumes that it is going to be a romance between them. I think there's 5 or 6 volumes out currently. I have ordered the second volume, knowing that they are going to be growing up and it is not going to be kind of like a children's manga. I cannot wait for that. So I'm excited to start the next volume. The last graphic novel manga that I'm going to talk about is actually a webtoon bind-up. Volume 1 is only out right now. I think Volume 2 comes out in March and I've already got it pre-ordered. And that is Freaking Romance and it's Volume 1 by Snail Lords. I'm going to tell you guys right now, the graphics in here by far is the best out of anything that I have read. Let me see if I can find something for you. It's absolutely gorgeous. I am in love with the way that this art style is. You guys, it is so good. I cannot wait for the second bind-up of this, but basically you are following our girl. She doesn't want to follow in the footsteps that her father has laid out for her. She wants to make it on her own. She wants to go to school to do what she wants to do, not what her father wants her to do. She is basically kicked out of her place. She's working on her own, so she finds a place that is haunted. That is how it is advertised. She finds out that the previous renter had went missing, I guess. So she moves in. She's like, you know what, ghost, that's fine. She does have a cat. So whenever she goes to move in here, her cat is always looking at someone and she sees him laying on the couch or she sees him laying in the bed or whatever, this guy. And she's like, who is this guy? She thinks he's a ghost. Come to find out, they are living in alternate dimensions, I think, at the same time, parallel worlds. So they start to know each other and get to know each other, and it's so good. I cannot wait to see where this goes because you obviously know it's going to be a romance, right? But how are they going to resolve the fact that they can't touch? How are they going to resolve the fact that they're in alternate dimensions? You guys, I'm in love with this story. The graphics are good. The story is good. You can go to webtoonunscrolled.com, I think. Read the webtoon comic on there past what volume 1 is. I haven't yet because I'm kind of waiting for volume 2. I might go on there and just continue to read it and then just stay current and then just buy the bind-ups as they come out. But by far, I absolutely love this one. Okay, so let's get into the books that I read in January. So, first book that I did pick up after all of my manga and graphic novels was Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross. I do not own a physical copy, so I'll just post it up here. But I gave this book 3 stars. And here are my thoughts. What happened to the story? That's what I want to know. I was reading this probably for the first 60%. I was bored. I was like, I don't understand. I get where it left off and where we went with it. Like, there were going to need to be times like this, of the first 60%. But not over half of the book. I was just not into it. I was like, I'm not feeling this. Like, where is the fantasy part of this? Where is the romance part? And then, of course, it does pick up. Things start tying together. The romance does kick off again. You are getting more in-depth story about the warring gods and who they are. I really, really, really liked Iris's brother. I really loved him, and I loved his whole story arc, and you get a lot more of him in this book, but you don't get much of Roman, and that's what's sad. You also don't get a whole lot of them being together, so I just don't feel the romance, if that makes sense. Like, we started to get there at the end of book 1. In book 2, I really didn't feel it. I didn't feel like there was yearning. I didn't feel like there was that connection and that fire between them. I just felt like it was kind of forced. What I did love is it did still keep the aesthetic of like a World War I, World War II war romance. It did keep those vibes. I felt really kind of down about it. Like, you learn about the gods, and I was just like, I don't even care at this point. Roman comes back into the picture, and it's like, oh, Roman's back. Like, there was no excitement. Like, I feel like book 1 was just so high, right? And then book 2, the finale, it just fell flat for me. And I might be in the minority here thinking that, but I just didn't feel it. I gave it 3 stars. I'm happy that I know where the story went, and I'm happy that I did find that conclusion and it didn't continue to keep going. But I don't think that if there was any more books in this world, I would pick them up anymore, because I just feel like it took me out of the story. I don't feel connected to any of it. To be honest with you, I don't even think about it anymore. And I read that probably the first week of January. So if you want more of my in-depth thoughts, definitely go back and watch any of my weekly vlogs. Any of these books will be in there. So if I have brushed over a book that you want more insight in or hear my reactions after I got done reading it, just go check back all my vlogs. They'll all be there. But yeah, just a 3 star. It was just okay. The next book that I read was my in-person book club pick for January, and that is Mile High by Liz Tomford. This is the first book in the Windy City series. I will say before I even tell you what my rating was, that all the people in my in-person book group, I think, already read book 2 and book 3 in this series. I gave this 4 stars. I absolutely loved Xander's. And a lot of people didn't like him. There are a lot of people out there that have rated this a lot lower because of Xander's. They didn't like his character. They didn't like the dynamic with him and the female main character. But I loved him. I really thought that he was what you would expect a professional hockey player to act like. I really did. His dynamic, I really loved the banter that they had on the plane whenever she was the flight attendant and the way that he would pick on her and stuff. And I really liked how whenever she would be at home, like, her brother is a professional basketball player, so she's not wowed by the status and by, someone being famous, because her brother is. So that's not what she looks for. She wants a low, like, out of the social light type of life, where she works at a dog shelter for, the dogs in Chicago. And you guys, it was just so heartwarming. I loved it. I even loved the brother, which I know book 2, The Right Move, is about. And I can't wait to read his story and get more about him, but him being in this book was just beautiful. I loved everything about it, you guys. I was hooked. I was in love. I was crying towards the end of it. It just, I absolutely loved it. 4 stars. I highly recommend, if you like hockey romances or sports romances, start diving into the Windy City series. The next book that I read it started out in my weekly vlog as a DNF. I then, after several of my friends told me to just keep going, I did, and I kind of wish I didn't, but here we are. And that is Binding 13 by Chloe Walsh, which is the first book in the Boys of Tommen series duology sets. So you're following our female main character, and she is bullied relentlessly where she goes to school. Now, they are in high school, so she's like 15 whenever we first meet her, I think, and then the male main character, is like 17, I think, and they're in high school, okay? Please remember that. They're in high school. She ends up going to this school because her mother thinks that she won't be bullied as much there. She can kind of get a good education because there's a lot of eating disorder things in here, trigger warnings for depression, a lot of things. Bullying is very, very bad in here. I did not feel the romance. I hated the story. I did not like the writing style. I didn't like anything about this book. There is not a single thing out of 600 pages that I can tell you that I liked about this. I know that this is on people's favorite books of 2023, of 2022. I know that it just got picked up and is traditionally published. I know that this is a loved series. I did not like it. I didn't like the fact that they were in high school, so I really didn't want to read about high schoolers' sexy time. I didn't want to read about, the love triangle or whatever that was happening in here. I didn't want to read about any of it because they're in high school. They were too young for me. I'm 37. I don't need to be reading about that. So, I gave it a 1 star. I wish I wouldn't have even pushed through whenever my friends told me to, because I knew myself. I knew that I wasn't going to like it. But if you do like contemporary romances that deal with a lot of heavy topics, you want to see it grow and stuff over just 2 books, definitely pick up The Boys of Tommen. I don't want to sway you from not reading it because your tastes are probably different than mine. You may end up loving this. I did not. 1 star. The next book that I picked up was the 4th book in the Savage Lands series by Stacey Marie Brown called Badlands. This is the January pick for the Alpha Ho Book Club that Becca in the Books hosts. I am so happy that I am reading this series. The series is not the greatest, but it is really, really good. I absolutely love just how addicting this world is and being in it. I love our female main character. She kind of is a Robin Hood, a female version of Robin Hood, if you will, because I can't tell you what book 4 is about, but basically the series starts out with her being like a Robin Hood. She is raised in the nobility because her father, I think, dies, so she's a ward of the king. She is raised alongside the prince, so her and the prince are best friends. She ends up robbing these trains that go from the human lands to the Fey lands, steals this medicine and different things that are on there, and actually gives it to the lower society that can't get it. So she does that. She gets it to people that truly need it instead of the nobility. This is a dystopian romance, and it's a dystopian world set in Budapest, I think. And you have the city divided for the human lands and the Fey lands. There's a war going on. The humans hate the Fey hate the humans. She gets caught and she's put into the Fey maximum prison where she is harassed and has to learn how to fight and meets the legendary Warwick Farkas. That's all I'm gonna say. From there, the story goes. However, I don't know how many explosions you can put in a book. I don't know how many convenient ways, to go about things. They think oh, we need to go rescue this person, and it's just so convenient. That person just shows up off page, or an explosion happens to get them out of a sticky situation. there's way too many coincidences, but the world and the storylines and everything is just so addicting. I can't stop. So I gave it 3 stars. It's not the greatest read I've ever had, but definitely not the worst. I'm having a fun time with it, and I can't wait to get to the 5th book, which I think is called The Bloodlands, I think. Anyway, I'll be starting that in February. The next book is a DNF, and this is my first DNF of the year, and that is The Book That Wouldn't Burn by Mark Lawrence. I DNF'd this, I don't even know, at 40%, 50% of the way through. I don't even know if I got that far. I don't know. It's like an 800-page book. It's ridiculously long. What can I tell you about this story? Basically, our female main character, I think she gets kidnapped and she's taken to the capital city, and there is this like system where you get checked kind of to see where you would fit in to basically be a servant, and she ends up having to go work in this library that's like this never-ending library. It's like really big. Our male main character lives in the library. I don't know how he eats or anything like that, but I digress. He lives in the library. He's never even been out of the library. They end up meeting, and there is this book that is drawn to him, and on it in like cryptic writing it says, "Do not turn the page, you can find me below," or something. So he's trying to figure out what that means. Somehow they're walking by a pool, and all of a sudden he's like, "Oh, I wonder how deep that pool is." And then he's like, "Maybe that means that they're down there." And then he just goes in. I'm like, I don't even know how we got to that conclusion, but here we are for the ride. I DNF'd it. I just couldn't go along with it. This was not my forte. I don't like the writing style. I don't like how the high fantasy is trying to be high fantasy, but not in a good way. So if you've read anything by Mark Lawrence, I think you might like it, but I had to DNF. I just wasn't even liking the story at all. The next book that I read was Immortal Longings by Chloe Gong, which I thought was going to be a standalone. However, it is a series. Whenever it was first pitched to me, it was supposed to be a standalone. So how it became a series, I don't know. But I did say in my vlogs that I was probably going to pick up the next book. However, I found out there's going to be like 3 or 4 books in this series, and I just cannot. I cannot. This was a 3-star. It was okay for me. I really liked the magic system in here where basically you have, I think everyone has it. It's like their chi or something. But basically nobility or anybody can jump into different bodies. If you jump into a body and that person, you know, basically says no or rejects you, you could die. But you can jump in other people's bodies and stuff, and then there's this like whole game-esque thing that's going on, kind of like Squid Game, I guess, where like you have to fight to the death and only one person can remain. Basically, you're going around this whole like town, and people are jumping from body to body, and you have to kill people and stuff. My question that never got answered was, whenever you jump into someone's body, what happens to your body? Does your body just keep going? Does it not need water? Does it not need food? Like, what if you jump into someone's body and you are like crossing the road? Does it just like flop down and then you just like are there until you return to it? Like, I don't understand. I think that the whole setup is really good. I love Chloe Gong's writing. I love all of her other books. But this one just didn't captivate me. I have way too many questions, and I'm confused at parts, and that's okay. Just wasn't a book for me. I don't have to love everything that an author that I like writes, but I really wanted to like it because I love all of her other books. But I was just too confused in here, and I don't have the drive to want to continue. The next book that I read was The Darkening by Sunya Mara. This book I also gave 3 stars to, and it is a series. Again, I am not going to continue it. However, I think I had a little bit more of a good time with this one than I did with Immortal Longings, but I just wasn't gripped by the story. There's elements in here of things that I just don't like and that haven't worked in the past for me in books. Basically, like, this whole world, town, I don't even know, is surrounded by a storm. And if you go into the storm, basically you are told that they die and no one ever comes back. And if someone does come back, you are storm touched, I think. And basically you're insane and you're crazy and you get like locked away or something. I don't know. It gave me a lot of Shadow and Bone vibes. Like if you watched my vlog on this, which would have been like my last vlog or the vlog before last, but basically if you like Shadow and Bone, you would definitely like this because the elements with the storm and the magic system a little bit is very Shadow and Bone-esque. That's about all that I could compare to Shadow and Bone, but very heavy with it. I just don't like the Shadow and Bone trilogy, and that may have had some reason of why I didn't connect with the characters in here. But I think that you would really like it if you want a YA fantasy that does have somewhat of a complex magic system, but one that's easy to understand, and a world that's kind of like divided into segments, you know, by how high up in the nobility rank you are. So I would definitely give this a try. I would recommend this to people, unlike Immortal Longings. I think this one would hit for a lot of people, especially if you love YA fantasy. And if you like the Shadow and Bone series, I think that you would love this book, and you might even like to read the whole series. The next one. The next one that I read was Smoke and Key by Kelsey Sutton. This book got 2 stars. It is a YA paranormal, somewhat romance, but it has a big mystery plot in here. Basically, you find out that our girl is dead at the very beginning, and she is in the Under, which is kind of like a purgatory, where you don't even have your names or anything. Basically, you are named by what was in your casket or what was like by your body or something. So she is Key and Smoke is the guy. Like, people are being killed in the Under, so they're trying to figure out what's going on, and we're trying to understand what the world and the system is like along with our character, because basically, like, when she wakes up in the Under, we're starting the book, so we're learning along with her, which I did like that aspect. But I just quickly got lost in here. Throwing out names like, I don't even know, Gumball and Handkerchief and stuff, it just took me out of the story. This was just too YA for me. So 2 stars. I'm happy that I tried it, but not again. So then I felt like I needed a palate cleanser, right? Like I mean, of course, if you watched my vlogs, you would know that I needed a palate cleanser. But if you didn't watch my vlogs, that's how I felt. I felt like I had read too much fantasy and I needed kind of something that wasn't fantasy. So I picked up Mortal Remains by Mary Ann Fraser. This is not fantasy, which I'm so happy about, but you're following our female main character. She has been raised in like a mortuary home where her dad is a mortician, and she has a stepmom because her mother abandoned her like within days or months of her being born. So she's been raised in this home, bullied in high school and everything, so she got to graduate earlier. She dropped out and got her GED. So now she's 18 or 19, I think. She does have a stepbrother, and he's somewhat caring of her, but he's also like kind of mean to her in the same sense. Whenever she was a younger girl, like 10, 11, 12 years old, something like that, she had met a neighbor boy named Adam. And Adam lived in this house that everyone, said stay away from. And they would meet in secret. So nobody in her real life knew that she knew Adam. And she fell out of an orchard tree, somehow became disabled, where the doctors didn't think that she was ever going to walk again, but she did end up walking again, but she can't like bend her leg in certain ways and stuff like that. But Adam did save her life because Adam gave her CPR, so she felt like she owed her life to Adam, but she was told by Adam's father to never darken their doorstep again. So she never went back, and she never knew what happened to Adam. Now we're in present day. She is kind of learning to take over the family business. Her dad wants to retire, so she's going to become a mortician, which is not what she wants to do. She wants to do something else. And there's an explosion in the neighborhood, and it's the house that Adam had lived in. There was a body that was found and brought to their home. So she's wondering about Adam. So she's calling around about him, all of these things. So her stepbrother, decides, let's go over to the home and look around the rubble and see if there's any treasures we can find. So in goes our girl, her best friend Mallory, and her stepbrother. And they are over there and they find this like bunker door with a guy in there, and he's like bone thin and everything, and he says his name is Adam, but he has no memories. That's where the story goes. You guys, this was a wild ride. I gave this 3 stars. I enjoyed it. I was flying through this book. I wanted to know what was going on. Why does Adam have no memories? What is going on in this town? Just so many things, like a huge mystery element to it, and a little bit of paranormal dabbled in there. I ate this book up. I think the only reason why I gave it 3 stars was because if you watched my vlog, there were parts that I was just like, what is happening? I didn't understand. But upon reflecting after several days of not reading it and being done with it, I do think about this book from time to time. So it's going to stay at a 3 star. It's not the best. I won't ever go back and read it. But I am very happy that I did read it. So if you like a gothic story and you want a YA new adult type of mystery paranormal story, pick this up. There is no spice in here, so no sexy time, but it's still good. It is still very, very good. It does have a romance subplot, but it's not very big. So it's going to be more on your mystery thriller paranormal genre. So I just tell everyone, pick it up. If you want a palate cleanser, I think it's really good. The last book that I'm going to talk about, it is The Things I Meant to Say and Never Did by Monica Murphy. This is book 1 in Lancaster Prep series. I hate this book. I'm going to be getting rid of A Million Kisses in Your Lifetime as well on my Pango books because I am not continuing this series. Even though it will be dealing with other characters within this world, I don't want to. I do not want to. Here's my big thing of why I didn't like it. 1 star, for one. 1 star. Where to start? So this book is about high schoolers. And I don't mind a high schooler type story whenever it's done well. If this was not done well, this was like a high school story where they're like 16, 17 years old, written as if they are 22, 24 years old, where they're in college. Like they live in their own dorm. It's all about like how he steals her journal and holds it against her and basically blackmails her to have sexual relations with him. And I'm just like, what? So he is blackmailing her. Basically, she's not even consenting to this, but she has to do it because she doesn't want to be bullied anymore. I mean, what is happening? You know, I mean, this was a very big bully romance, but it could have been done with them in college. They did not need to be in high school. I don't feel like the high school aspect played any part in this story. So why that was chosen over college, I'm not sure, but I will not be continuing because whenever I was reading the book and we would be in those like dark romantic times, I would forget that they are 16 and 17 years old. And then whenever I would remember that, it just took me out of the story and made me feel icky. So 1 star, not going to continue. Maybe the author should make them in college. So you have come to the end. That is all of the books that I read in January. Please make sure that you leave me some comments below. Let me know if you have read any of these books or what you thought of them, or if you have found any books that you are going to put on your TBR shelf. Always leave me comments below. I want to know your thoughts. But until next time, everybody, I hope you have a great day. Bye!